Hi, it's Alexis Hasselberger, time management and productivity coach. One of the questions that I get asked most frequently when I'm interviewed on podcasts or just when I'm meeting new people and they're asking for my best tips about things is, what are your best tips? What is just one or two nuggets you can give me that is going to change everything? And one of the things that I always answer with is around end of day planning, doing a little bit of planning at the end of today to make tomorrow be so much better. So when we do a little bit of planning to make sure that we have a realistic plan for the next day, that we have time to do the things that we are setting ourselves out to do, then everything goes smoother. One, we're able to disconnect mentally from work at the end of the day, actually be present with whatever we're doing outside of work. And then also we're able to start the next day at a running start. We already have a plan in place. We know what to do. We just have to get moving and do it. However, building this habit is a little bit easier said than done, like a lot of things. And so I wanted to share 4 different common pitfalls to this end of day planning process and how you can combat those. If you have been trying to inject a little bit of more planning into your workflow and into your days to help you feel more relaxed and structured around things, but you're just having trouble making time for it to happen. So I want to share these 4 different pitfalls and what we can do about them. So the first one is that, it's you're reviewing, you're not planning, right? And so sometimes people are like, I just don't feel like it's a good use of my time doing this planning. And when I dig deeper, I find that they're not actually using that time to plan, they're using that time to review. So using that time to look at what they did during the day, to update their task list, et cetera. And so they never quite get to the planning phase, to the tomorrow phase. Instead, they're kind of pushing everything that they didn't do today to tomorrow and calling it a day. And that doesn't actually set us up for success. So one of the ways that we can stop reviewing and start planning is to update our task system in the moment as we go along. So if you do a task, then update the task, then do the next task, by the time you get to the end of the day, there's really nothing left to update. There's nothing left to review. You don't need to review. You've already done that work. And so all you need to do is spend a few minutes making sure that you have a realistic plan for the next day. Now, another thing that often happens for people is that they're just too tired to do planning at the end of the day. They get to the end of the day, you've been working hard all day long, and doing a little bit of planning for tomorrow just seems like this one extra thing that you don't have the energy for. And if this describes you, if this has happened to you, then what I want you to think about is your future self. I want you to think about tomorrow you. So there really are 2 paths here, right? You could do a little bit of planning to set yourself up for success tomorrow. And if you do that, you're going to be able to be present at the dinner table. You're going to fall asleep more easily because you're not thinking about all those work thoughts. And you're going to start the next day with a plan already in place. You're going to be able to start executing on it, and you're going to be able to, pivot based on what new information that you receive, right? Now, the other path, and this is the path that we tend to take more often when we're tired, is that we just say, you know what, I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to do that planning tomorrow. And then what happens? What happens is we're really not present with whatever else we're doing after work because we are thinking about all of those work things. Maybe we're even underneath the table tapping out that last email, et cetera. We're not being present with whoever it is we want to be with, or even just with ourselves, right? We might have trouble falling asleep because we're just swirling. We're thinking about all that stuff that we didn't get to today, or that's still hanging out, or that's going to be overdue tomorrow, et cetera. And then we wake up in the morning and we're like, what does tomorrow bring? What does today bring? When is my first meeting? Am I prepared for it? We just are facing these kind of constant onslaughts because we didn't plan in advance. We're not feeling very structured and we have too much to do. So which path do you want to choose, right? Even if you're tired, 10 minutes of planning can save you from that fate, that secondary fate that we described, where you're not present, you're not sleeping well, and you're waking up feeling really anxious about the day. And so I often think if I'm too tired, and that happens to me too, what do I want? Which pain is going to be worse? Is it going to be worse to spend a few minutes planning right now? Or is it going to be worse to have the whole day tomorrow scrambling? And that's how I make sure that I almost always choose the future self, where I can be calm, collected, and know what to do. And I can do that by a little bit of planning. Now, another thing that often happens is that we have full intentions to do planning, right? Like we have it set on our calendar, we're gonna do it. And then we just always prioritize that one last email. And by the time we're done with that last email, you know what, it's time to pick up our kids or it's time to make dinner. And we just skip the planning because we are always prioritizing that one last thing. And if that's true for you, one of the things you can try is to go ahead and just play around with the timing. I call it end of day planning. It doesn't have to happen at the end of the day. In fact, it can happen anywhere in the last few hours of your workday. Usually by then you have a pretty good idea of what's on your plate for tomorrow, what are your meetings look like tomorrow, what you're going to accomplish today. We've got a good sense of those things at that point. So if planning at 6 p.m. just doesn't work for you, move it around, right? Move it around based on when you have time. Try 3 p.m. Try a different time every day based on when you have the time available. You could even try, stacking it, habit stacking with whatever the last meeting of the day that you have, you do your planning right after that. So play around with that timing if you're just finding that at the end of the day, you're always prioritizing something else. And then the last thing that people often say is, this planning, it just takes too long. You told me it was going to take 10 or 15 minutes and I'm spending a half an hour over here doing this, right? So if it's taking too long, there are a couple of things to really think about. One of them is that you want to be updating in the moment, just like we talked about before, because your planning might be taking too long because you're spending too much of that time reviewing. And so if you're updating as you go in the moment, then it's much easier at the end of the day to say, okay, there's just a couple things I need to move and I can look at tomorrow, I can look at my calendar, I can look at my task list, I can make sure that they make sense, right? Now, another key factor here is that if daily planning is taking too long, you might not be spending any time at all or not enough time on weekly planning. Personally, I spend, 3 to 5 minutes on daily planning, and I spend a good half an hour on weekly planning. And what this does is planning for the week, making sure that you have a realistic plan for each day of the week, allows your end of day planning to go much more quickly. You're not starting from scratch every day, right? You spent a little bit of time at the end of the week planning for the next week, and now your end of day planning is really just recalibrating, intaking new information, moving things around a little bit. It's pivoting. It's not starting from scratch. And so the first thing I always say if people are telling me, it's just taking so long to do this planning is, are you doing some weekly planning? Because if we start doing a little bit of weekly planning, then guaranteed that end of day planning is going to take you way less time. So I could, talk forever till I'm blue in the face about why planning is the most important work. But I think a lot of people, they know that planning is important, and it's really more about the execution. And so these 4 different pitfalls and how to counteract them, I'm hoping that these can set you off on the right foot so that you can interject a little bit of that planning into your day and have much more present and calm days going forward.
Hey, it's the video editor here. Just want to quickly tell you that only 6.3% of the people that watch our videos are actually subscribed. So it'd be a big help if you just went down about 2 inches and click that red subscribe button and maybe leave a like down as well.